The strategic power you once boasted of has turned into a strategic defeat. These charged words, delivered with a defiant tone, reflect more than rhetoric. They echo a deeply polarized global moment in which military force, diplomatic negotiation, and geopolitical posturing collide.
At stake is not only the fate of Iran and the United States, but the balance of power across entire regions, the stability of global energy markets, and the future of nuclear diplomacy. In recent months, the United States and its regional partners have launched an extensive air and missile campaign against Iran, a campaign that Washington describes as overwhelming in effect. Their Navy's gone. Their Air Force is gone.
Their communications are gone. All of the anti-aircraft is gone. Most of their missiles are gone. Pretty much everything they have is gone. These emphatic assertions capture the U.S. leadership's public framing of a decisive military campaign. Assessment by U.S. military officials supports part of this picture. The U.S. Central Command reported that the United States and Israel have significantly damaged or destroyed a vast portion of Iran's missile, drone, and naval production infrastructure, including more than 10,000 military targets struck so far. Yet on the ground and in the air, the situation is more complex. Though key assets have been degraded, Iran has retained asymmetric capabilities and continued to launch long-range attacks. Missile and drone strikes from Iranian forces have targeted U.S. bases and regional infrastructure, while the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most vital maritime choke points, has caused extensive disruption in global oil markets. Oil prices have reacted dramatically to this uncertainty. Prices initially surged on fears of supply shocks, but later softened amid reports of diplomatic efforts, underscoring how closely energy markets now mirror geopolitical developments. There are also human costs amid this shock and awe, with civilian casualties reported by Iranian authorities in the thousands and critical infrastructure hit repeatedly. Against this backdrop of destruction, the United States government asserts that diplomatic channels remain open. We are in negotiations right now. They're doing it along with Marco. We have a number of people doing it, and the other side, they'd like to make a deal. These comments, reminiscent of recent public statements by U.S. leadership, underscore Washington's insistence that diplomacy has not been abandoned, even as military operations continue. Indeed, a 15-point peace plan has been shared with Tehran via third parties, offering significant sanctions relief in exchange for dismantling Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, halting nuclear enrichment, and limiting ballistic missile and proxy support activities. But Tehran's public reaction has been firm and unyielding. Iranian military and political spokespeople have dismissed claims of meaningful negotiations, mocking U.S. diplomacy and asserting that Washington is in disarray. We are negotiating with ourselves, said one Iranian military spokesperson in state media, ridiculing U.S. diplomatic posturing and reaffirming Iran's rejection of direct talks under current conditions. Iran also publicly rejected the U.S. peace proposal, labeling it maximalist and demanding that ceasefire conditions be set by Tehran's terms, not dictated by Washington. Their counterproposal includes demands for reparations, formal security guarantees, and control over the Strait of Hormuz. From Washington's side, the negotiation team is drawn from across military and political leadership. According to multiple reports, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, former White House advisor, have all been mentioned publicly as involved in discussions or mediation efforts through intermediaries. These figures represent a mix of political, strategic, and diplomatic voices, an attempt by the White House to signal seriousness in engagement while maintaining pressure. Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey have emerged as key intermediaries, offering to host talks or transmit proposals between the U.S. and Iran. Islamabad has explicitly stated its readiness to facilitate meaningful face-to-face discussions if the parties agree, yet Tehran remains cautious. Reports indicate Iranian officials are skeptical of engagement with certain American envoys due to past experiences, suggesting that choice of interlocutors may matter as much as the substance of any offer. At the core of the U.S. demands is the elimination of any credible Iranian nuclear weapons capability. Washington has repeatedly emphasized that Iran must never obtain a nuclear weapon, a stance confirmed in recent diplomatic messaging. But for Tehran, past negotiations and the memory of sanctions, pressure campaigns, and military threats have bred deep mistrust. Iranian leaders insist any negotiations must respect their security interests and sovereignty, and have publicly rejected what they regard as unilateral U.S. conditions. These divergent priorities make diplomacy difficult, even as both sides show, at times, public statements suggesting a willingness to pause escalating hostilities. The unfolding conflict and associated negotiations have reverberated far beyond battlefield lines. In the United States, political tensions over the war strategy and negotiation tactics have deepened, with lawmakers debating the extent of executive authority and policy direction. Internationally, countries from Europe to Asia have urged restraint and sought to either facilitate or constrain diplomatic engagement. China and Russia have publicly called for de-escalation, while Sunni Arab states watch both war and diplomacy with strategic concern. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz, responsible for transporting roughly 20% of global oil supplies, has sent shivers through global markets, prompting fears of energy shocks that could exceed past crises. Despite optimistic rhetoric from Washington about the prospects of a deal, Iran's hardened stance and counterdemands signal a prolonged period of tension. Both sides remain far apart. The U.S. insists on dismantling Iran's nuclear infrastructure, while Iran demands recognition of its regional and sovereign interests before engaging in a comprehensive ceasefire. Nothing will return to its previous state until the idea of acting against the Iranian nation is completely removed. This declaration, from an Iranian perspective, underscores a resolve that may slow or complicate any negotiated settlement. At the same time, U.S. leadership continues to frame the conflict as necessary to secure both American interests and regional stability, while simultaneously insisting on the value of diplomatic progress. The world now watches at a precarious intersection of power and diplomacy. No single outcome is assured. Military operations rage, diplomatic cables circulate through third parties, and enviers across continents gauge whether peace is closer through negotiation or intractable conflict. What is unmistakable is that the narrative of this war, its meanings, its casualties, and its consequences will be shaped not only in the capitals of world powers, but in the resilience of people whose lives are most directly affected. In a historical moment so fraught where military might and diplomatic overs mix uneasily, the eyes of the world remain fixed on the unfolding story of a crisis that refuses easy resolution.